Okay, good evening, Amit. Good evening, Naga. Good evening to everybody who is joining us today or will join us the next couple of minutes. This is an exclusive fireside chat with Naga Siddharth and Amit Sharma. This is exclusively a book webinar. We're going to be reviewing Naga's book on HR analytics, How Many a Human Number. Before we get started on with the rest of the session, I'd like to take you all through a little bit of NHRD Bangalore chapter. We've introduced the life membership, institutional membership fee, and the student membership fees have been reduced. You can always log into our website and look at the lifetime memberships or the annual memberships or the student memberships as well. We have a breakdown of the tenure, the cost with and without the GST. You can avail all of this immediately, I think, and you could get all the discounts that you can avail for all the learning programs that we offer. There are two upcoming certifications that Bangalore chapter is offering. One is a virtual certification on the art of business storytelling. This is starting from the 5th of September, which is spread across 6 Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. The registrations are open on the NHRD Bangalore website. You can also reach out to Surabhi, who is going to be the SPOC for this certification, for any details that you might want. The second certification that is coming up is on IR, Industrial and Employee Relations. This is in coordination with WeSchool, which is starting from the 19th of September. This is on the Saturdays as well, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Registrations are open for this also on our website. You can log in and you for any information on IRER certification, you can reach out to Sindhuja. Both the SPOCs have their numbers put up on the website on the poster. You can always reach out to them. In addition to this, we're present across all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, on YouTube also now that we're going live and having sessions. We had one HR roundtable conference about 10 days ago, which was a pretty big hit. And this is our second live, so you can always follow us on social. Use this QR code for membership type. You can make payments and you can check your mails for your membership numbers as well. To introduce our author today, Naga is a CHRO, he's a psychometrician, he's an author also. He has 4 books on Amazon. They're on analytics, they're on compensation design, and a checklist for people managers. He's had experience across various sectors. There's aviation, IT, healthcare, retail, startups, and he is known for his business through people methodology for impact. He wrote his first book in 2012, which was released by National HRD Network. This was an active HR analytics, a term he coined and was forwarded by Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who used terms such as groundbreaking and revolutionary to describe the book. The foreword also alluded to Dr. Peter Drucker and mentioned that such works in management come up once in a very long time. Naga has been a long-time volunteer at NHRD Bangalore. He was also a part of the National Youth Board of NHRD and the secretary of the Bangalore chapter, which ran the successful conference. Of late, Naga, I believe, has been curating GareUP.cafe, which focuses on developing HR talent. So welcome, Naga. Welcome, Amit. Over to you now, Amit.
Thank you, Lakshmi, for setting up the stage, and welcome, Naga. Welcome to this fireside chat, and also welcome to all our viewers who are watching us on Facebook Live, YouTube, and all other social media channels. And I can tell you right in the beginning that this is really going to be a very, very insightful chat. with a professional and an author like Naga Siddharth. So welcome everyone. And
Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Lakshmi, for the wonderful introduction. And most importantly, remembering to call out that I'm a volunteer at NHRD. So that's something very close to my heart, pre-MBA days as well. So it feels good to be back home. Yeah, thank you. Over to you, Amit.
yeah, you are an integral part of NHRD, Siddharth. So that all goes without saying. So now let me just ask you a question to begin with. And this is not about your book, by the way. This is just about understanding you as an author, apart from being an HR professional. So, what really inspired you to start writing? How do you take up to writing? Was it passion right from your early maybe school, college days, or something you picked up later? So, what's the story behind it?
Oh, great question. Thank you. I think I started writing, when I was in second standard. So writing continued. And I think in between, I kind of forgot that I wrote. And then again, being in HR, there's a lot of opportunity to. So there are a couple of things that I do. I write, I teach, I research, and I also do a lot of coaching. Coaching is where I learn the most. And writing has been a passion. The reason I wrote the book was out of around 10, 12 years of experience. When the book came out, I had figured out a way of doing things to make a point that everything in HR is measurable if one wants to measure it. And that's how the book really came about. I said there's no point keeping it to myself and kind of trying to tell others that I do something new without actually telling people what it is and how can they do it too. And my inspiration has been Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who's been my teacher for over a decade now. And Marshall has always been saying that he has a very foolproof security system that nobody can steal his works. And the guess, I'm sure you got it by now, is that he gives away his stuff free and fair, generously to people. So what's given away can't be stolen. So, that's how I thought of writing a book and saying, hey, go ahead, use it. If it's useful, wonderful, just let me know. I'll be happy to.
No, that's really wonderful. Especially, I really like this concept what you just mentioned about give it up, give it to people. If it's of value to people, and that's what the larger purpose of any author is, that people should benefit out of the work. And happy to see that you are really following the footsteps of Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. And you never know, we are going to see a Indian version of a Marshall Goldsmith sometime in future, very soon, Siddharth.
Thank you.
So let me just ask you with the first question. When I look at a book, and the title itself is very intriguing, and I have your book in my hand. It says, "How Many a Human Number." What's the significance of this title? Why this particular title, and why do you think about writing a book on this particular topic?
Sure. Like I shared, Amit, when I by 2012 or so, I knew that I had a handle on doing things differently in HR. I had practiced it at multiple organizations. I had figured it out that it works across multiple domains. And then I also kind of, being in NHRD and, being fairly active in the HR circles, I've always been attending conferences that say, oh, HR, is HR relevant? Can HR, add business value and so on? And then it became increasingly clear to me that, hey, if HR wasn't adding value, they would have been out of business anyway, long time ago. So clearly, there is some value that HR is adding. Mm-hmm. And it's probably the question to be asked is how to measure that, how to kind of communicate that. Because usually the number, working very closely with high achievement oriented CEOs, operations guys, and so on, is typically "acha kitna hua," right? In sales or whatever it is. So how many is a very true thing in the way we run businesses. And looking at it in a slightly different way, I said, I've had great mentors and. One of them, something that they've been telling me is, if your answer and the finance answer is the same, one of you, is irrelevant there. So I said, hey, you can ask me how many, but the answer that I give you will be a human number, right? And that human number will look very different from what you've ever looked at. And what you ever expected. But then, yeah, make peace.
No, that's true, because ultimately that there has to be a different dimension to the number which is coming in from different aspects of an organization, and what comes from an HR and what comes from finance. Though they both have to lead to the same direction, though that alignment needs to be very, very critical. That it's both are leading to the same direction, but it's important that both are bringing out different dimensions of the problem so that we can collectively look at the picture in totality and go ahead and go towards resolving the issue. One of the things
you articulated what was on my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the lines, which is I'm reading this from the foreword which Dr. Marshall Goldsmith has wrote for you, and it's saying importance of measures and metrics in human context, and how can a human resource department truly help its customers, that is business, succeed. So what are your thoughts on this? Because this is a very profound line.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amit. So, see, including Dave Aldrich's book, one of his books, which kind of showed two arrows, right? And then you had little balls of credible activist and the different roles, 6 different roles, if I remember. And then this dilemma, kept coming up. Always there's this wonderful question that, people ask panelists, okay, sir, is it business or is it people, right? So I said, hey, it doesn't work like that. In the real world, it seems to work in some other way. So all I did is figure out how do successful guys or successful businesses run? And then the answer is very simple. It's not business or people, it's business through people. Right. And the way to do that is that's where HR plays a pivotal role. How does HR really work with people, work on constructs that nobody else can work on, and constructs beyond attrition, beyond engagement, beyond, the stuff that we usually hear. How can we make it active? Right. And the only way that influence happens with business is through metrics, through analytics. And hence, what really happens is that if I know how to do this, I can kind of actually go out there and help my customer succeed. Right. So as a business, role holder, HR's job is to help the customer succeed. And the customer could be your own business. It could be the final customer. Right. If I'm thinking of my final customer, helping the final customer succeed is, of course, helping having an alignment in the organization, having a certain energy moving through the organization. And one of the ways could be, the process that I've given. And if you see, my book is very small. And the reason for that is, I think the best things in life are very simple. Right. One of the things that I've done in the book is not to try and teach people HR or statistical tools. I mean, that's what most of the analytics books do, right? I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying that this is different. So I figured out that the easiest and the quickest way to ensure that people find it easy to go there and become as good as I am while doing this for their own companies is by teaching a process. A process is something that anybody can learn, apply, and look at results. Right. And hence the book makes it very transferable, makes the entire knowledge very transferable. And I think I was struggling to hit 100 pages there. Right. So I made it almost cryptic to a fault. But then, then I had to again expand on it and, give a lot of examples and so on. But then, the intention is there. It is to be generous with the process so that people can pick it up, play around with it. But then you follow the process, you get the result.
Right. Now I'm reminded of one of the quotes which I read somewhere, that if you can't explain it in a simple language, it means you haven't understood it at all. So, so the hallmark of a grasping of a particular subject is always about how you can articulate it in the most simplistic of all manners. If anybody can read it, if a school child can read it, even that person can understand. That shows the quality of grasping or the mastery of the subject which a person has. And I'm sure, and this is reflective in your book. It really brings it in a very simple manner, but in a very emphatic and a very empathetic manner. So that's something which is really there. And I'm also reminded that of one of the, when I was having discussions with, I remember one of my bosses a few years back, and he used to say that, he says, HR and business are not different at all. They're part of the same thing. And as you very rightly said, And he said, as an HR leader, you are a business leader first, and then you specialize in people. It's like, somebody specializes in sales, somebody specializes in marketing, somebody specializes in operations, but we all are business leaders. When we're sitting on the management team, we all are working towards one common business objective. Just that we bring different dimensions to the table, and which collectively forms business. So business and people are not at all different. They are very much intertwined, like any other function of a sales or a supply chain or manufacturing, for that matter. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, sorry.
No. So go ahead. You were saying something.
Yeah, I think something that came to mind with your previous summarizing is the difference between what is simple and what is easy, right? Often simple things are simple to look at, simple to understand, but not very easy to implement. And in HR analytics, this is often, seen. Yeah, I've read Naga's book. This is so simple. Yeah, I'm going to go and do it. Yeah, boom, right? You hit your first. So there's a lot that is about how do I go about and implement the process. We'll touch that a little later if we have time.
Yeah. No, very well said. And as I'm going through the pages, I find that there was kind of I would call it a banyan tree moment for you in ISB in 2011, when you came up with certain truths about change, about HR measurement, about it. Tell me a story about it, and what are these 5 truths which you have unearthed, or that was I would call it a banyan tree moment for you.
Sure. So when I was trained in executive coaching in ISB, this was the time I got a lot of time with Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. And, as I spent more and more time, I realized that what the world's best executive coach calls his coaching is very, very different from what, I was exposed to, or what is being taught quite liberally everywhere, and people keep picking up certifications. I have nothing against certification. I'm also certified. So, but the fact is, it was very, very different. It was about producing change in behavior, right? It might lead to changes in values, attitudes, beliefs, and so on. But the bottom line was, has the behavior change been achieved? Yes or no? Right? And for this, it was very clear that, going over the exercises and so on, the first thing is, if I don't want to change, I'm not going to change, right? Even if I'm threatened into changing, that's going to be a fairly temporary change. Let's take recent times, right? We had people under lockdown. We had police all over, probably, touching people with a little bit of force, if they weren't wearing masks. And then when the police force went away, Bangalore was again having a 10% coverage of people who are wearing masks, right? So I don't want to change. I will change if there is a force applied on me, and in this case with the lathi, right? And once that goes away, I revert. Right, so that's the first thing that became very clear to me. The second thing is that the best of the lot in any profession or sport or whatever you call it, right? They constantly want to get better. I think there's a Simon Sinek example of his going to Microsoft, and then his going to Apple, and then it's there on YouTube. So the point being that the best in any profession or any sport want to get better constantly. Now, getting better is all about results. So measuring effort is often a hit and miss strategy, right? It's like probably measuring the number of times I've gone to the gym, right? Or something like that. The amount of money I spent in the gym, for example. Right, that's an effort strategy. What I'm not going to, it's not going to make any change to me if at the end of 6 months my weight has actually gone up and I look flabbier, right? So what actually matters is the results. 4, if I don't know where I am now, measuring me after 1 year doesn't matter anyway. Right? I've got to know where I am today, so that I exactly know where I'm going. And finally, if there is no implication for changing, there's a good chance that the change will never take off. I was talking to a friend who's working in Dubai, and he was telling me that I asked him, "Hey, is everyone wearing a mask, right?" So he said, "Oh yeah, everyone's wearing a mask, maybe two." I said, "What? What's all this enlightenment in probably more than half of Dubai's population is from India, and then the same folks here with the same genetic makeup don't want to wear masks, and over there they're wearing masks." He said, Naga, there's a very small simple thing. Anyone who doesn't wear a mask has to make a small little donation of around 15,000 Indian rupees, okay, in Dubai currency. So if you see, unless there's an implication, there's going to be no change, right? So these are truths that become very clear, not only in executive education, but at a larger sense as well.
Right. No, that's very well said. The key thing, till the time there is no inner force to change, nothing will change. And there has to be, as they say, a burning platform for a person to feel the need for a change. Otherwise, there are very few people who are really internally motivated to make difference. For a large population, they need, till the time the platform is not burning, they'll not really look at it.
Yeah, it's probably not enough fun to go and do the change, right?
That's true. Then you also talked about, I think you also kind of, you briefly mentioned earlier also, and in the book also you have mentioned that HR is always, everybody's trying to justify the existence of HR or the function. Companies want to know what HR is actually doing, and in many places, HR wants to tell others what they are doing. And you find in many organizations this as a constant thing in the minds of the HR leaders to always justify themselves. Hey, this is the value add, and you very clearly mentioned that the value is there. That's why the function is there. Otherwise, the function would have been gone back long back. So why do you think it's still happening? Why do you think we still hear these things about HR relevant, and somebody says HR is going to be dead, and we had this some famous thought leader making a nice speech that HR is going to be dead in 2 years. Then Ram Charan said, HR is, let's split HR function into multiple parts and let's take it away. So we hear all of these theories. We never hear it about finance. We never hear it about manufacturing, supply chain, sales. But this HR is always under scanner. Why do you think it's there?
Okay, I have a conspiracy theory. I believe all the guys who make money out of conferences, the tent guys, the AC guys, the lighting guys, and the sound guys, they're the guys who are perpetuating this lie. Because if this so-called dilemma goes away, they are the guys who won't get any more conferences. Okay, that's on a lighter note. But the thing is, I've actually tried to give a way out of this in the book, and I call it the CUST4 model, or the customer focus model for HR metrics. And the focus, I have tried to give a little bit of a contrast to whoever's analyzing numbers and so on in HR. And I've said, hey, okay, you love 2x2 metrics. I'll give you a 2x2 box, right? So so you have two axes. On one axis, you have focus on HR competency. In other words, how much I love myself and what I do, right? So low and high. On the other one, I have business focus, which is how much do I actually care about people who are giving me the money. So low, high. If my business focus is low and my HR focus is also low, I focus on what are called effort competencies, or effort metrics or effort analytics. A typical I did this, I did that kind of stuff, right? Which I've actually said is kind of justifying the need, or it could be a guilt washing trip, right? So those are effort metrics. Go one step higher. Okay, I love what I do. I'm still not so bothered about what a business does. I get into efficiency metrics. I could do this so well. Did you know, right? It's like a did you know question. Did you know I could conduct a walk-in with 100 people and only 2 seats for the people who walked in, right? Did you know? So these are typical did you know efficiency metrics. Now, slowly, while my focus on HR also continues to be high, if I focus on the impact that I've made on business, I move into effectiveness metrics. Okay, how well has the HR function delivered for business? right? So, for example, the number of offer renegades, for example, right? How many offers done in the last 6 months, and what's been the joining percentage, right? That could be that could be an indication of how effective I am. But the last one is really when HR tends to forget about itself, with very low focus on HR function and absolute focus on the business. And that's where I come in the impact metrics. Impact metrics typically are either a ratio without a unit, or if at all there's one unit. I love the term that some of my friends in business use, and that's called tantania, right? And that is, it's got to talk money, right? It's great if you reduce attrition. So what? Who cares, right? Can you come back and tell me? I mean, you doesn't mean you. It means someone who's doing this. So if I can go back to business and talk about, hey, attrition fell down so much, and hence, because of this, the saved cost in probable attrition has led to so much extra sales, or so many saved hours in training, or so many saved hours in reinduction. And when I use a fair enough indicator, so many $1 million is what I've saved you. Now that is impact, right? So once we start talking this, then those conference, the Shamiana guy and the AC guy aren't going to be so happy.
No, well said. And that brings me to another chapter of your book, which is around metrics, measures, and key performance indicators. And I also see one question which is there on the chat, which says, is it possible to blend effort metric along with efficiency metric? But before that, I would like to ask you, what's the difference between measures, metrics, and key performance indicators? Because you have very beautifully articulated this difference between the three. I think it's important we hear it directly from you to all our participants, that how do you differentiate between the two, and what's the relative importance of all the three elements?
Thank you, Amit. That's very kind of you to note that point in the book. So a measure is anything that can be measured. And in this case, because we are talking about HR analytics, a measure is anything that can be measured in the context of human resources. It could be anything simple. It could be number of training hours, number of trainings, right? And I really stretch it to the limit. And I say even the number of plates in the cafeteria, right? And then I could find a ratio saying, no, so many employees to so many plates. Okay, fair. So anything that can be measured is a metric. I'm sorry, anything that can be measured is a measure. And when does it become a metric? It becomes a metric when there is a comparison or a baseline or something that I can talk about it, that is relevant to company's performance. And there is a particular target or a benchmark that it can be compared with. For example, telling that I have 5% attrition rate is a measure, while if I say I have 5% attrition rate, while I compare 5 other peer companies who have 22% attrition rate, well, that's a metric. You can actually do something with it. A measure for all my physics-loving friends is like a scalar. A metric is a vector. It has a scale and it has a direction. Yeah, so that's the difference.
And how would you link it with the KPIs?
Sure. So a KPI is a metric that indicates either past performance of a business or predicts a future state, right? It's extremely important to understand that this is very context specific. A context could be an industry, right? KPI needs to KPI, for example, I think the example that I give in the book is the number of PhDs and hold patents. Let us say in a call center, it might not really matter if I'm going to start tracking that. Whereas that would really matter for someone who's in the pharma industry or let's say universities, right? It could depend on the job family. KPIs could vary significantly across the organization, across functions. For example, sales, they typically say, one more quarter over. While someone into long-term vaccine development might look at, okay, I just completed 5 years, right? So KPIs could be fairly different in the way I understand that. And of course, the context of the markets. Am I a B2B business? Am I a B2C business? And so on. So KPIs actually kind of brings in the aspect of differentiating competencies. We'll look at that probably a little later.
No, sure. And when we're talking about efficiency versus effort, or output versus the effort, see, effort is also equally important. That's also something which people are, when they're putting in their effort, sometimes the outcome is not in their hands, but they are still focusing they're still doing things with all the right intentions. So how do you see this balance between the two? The efficiency metrics, which is more an output based metric, versus the process based metric, or effort based metric. So how do you see the balance between the two, or do you see that we should only focus on the efficiency and not on the effort, or both? What are your thoughts around on this topic?
See, I think from an academic point of view, or even a humanistic point of view, it's important to have effort metrics. It's important to know the kind of effort expended on stuff. That's all possible if I have a fairly secure, safe environment, right? Let's say I'm doing this in a very large business in one corner, and then the team has put in efforts, and the effort metrics are available. Efficiency is not available. Nothing else has happened, and there is a fairly large factor, right? COVID happened, right? Fair, okay. Now, however, effort metrics won't keep the vehicle running for a long time, and the reason is, business is about finally making profits. So it is better that I as well spend more time designing whatever I do well. So design is not how it looks, design is how it works, right? So if I spend enough time designing whatever I'm doing for the business, and actually start becoming a little bold, maybe foolhardy, but very courageous to actually start looking at those efficiency, effectiveness metrics, that's what's going to probably move the needle for HR. So it's a choice.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because if you really look at it, both are equally important. Both are important rather, but the outcome is much more critical, because that's what is actually making the needle move, and that's what is really making an actual business effort. And the importance of any function is about how much it is making the needle move as far as the business is concerned, and that's where the focus has to be. So,
Marshall Goldsmith has two very simple phrases that kind of just go and hit you there, and one of them is make peace, and make peace, let it go. Yeah, make peace, you're a business, right? So impact matters. And the second one is a little less politically right. He says suck it up. So I guess both these are important in a business context, right? We are there to make a difference. And if we haven't been able to make it, fair enough. 1 quarter fine, 2 quarters fine, but then quickly come on, pick it up and figure out what needs to happen.
So, and so you have really researched this topic, and you have, and this is one of the areas which you really specialize in about HR analytics. Still, if you really look at a large population of our HR leaders, they'll find it difficult to come to a tangible metrics to show their performance or show their impact to the business. So, why do we see many HR leaders struggling with that, and the field that was still is a kind of a hazy, or a kind of a function we really don't know. You really can't measure the output in a finite way, as I can measure a sales guy's output, or I can measure a finance person's output. So, but you have a completely contrary view that everything in HR can be measured, and everything in HR can be quantified, and we can go and put it into a KPI and move forward. So why do you think there is this struggle? Why people are not able to comprehend the analytical part or the measurable part of HR?
I'll give you a very serious answer first, and then a little less serious answer. Is that okay?
Sure. Please go ahead.
Okay, the extremely serious answer, right, is that is because that is when they buy my book. Okay, and the not so serious answer is that probably there is unless people are pushed to a corner, they don't change, right? There's no implication. Today HR can get away without actually thinking about what's the impact. There's no gun to the head, right? There were so many companies not willing to even try out work from home. Today, all of them are doing better with 150% productivity because they got pushed to it. So it's basically about the change. If I want to measure and my business says, don't talk to me till you are able to measure what you do, I will try to figure out ways to measure. I mean, I might sound a little ruthless, but this is the way I see it. But then it's actually the serious answer that I gave in the beginning. It's to help my book sales get improved. Yeah.
And many other authors like that. So, okay. So in one of the chapters in your book, you're talking about the competency way of thinking, and you have also defined competence versus competency, and what's the difference between the two. And you're talking about a threshold competency and differentiating competency. So, can you share some more thoughts around it? That how do you see a competence and the competency? What's the difference between the two, and the concept of threshold and differentiating competencies?
Absolutely. Let me try. So this is something not of my own creation. This is something that I've learned, from Spencer and Spencer. And I think going back to the creators of any construct, any concept, helps tremendously in getting the level of simplicity and clarity that they had. So basically, competency is what causes criterion referenced either superior job performance or threshold job performance in a particular context. It's underlying. It can't be directly viewed. For example, I can't I can't view a competency of someone not getting angry when versus someone remaining calm when provoked, right? When someone remains calm, that's when my bean counter can actually start working and say, yeah, one behavior observed. So competency is what causes the performance, and competence is equal to performance, full stop. Right? So that's another word for performance. And behavior data is as good data as anything else. And once the HR practitioners start understanding this and start using this, it gives them a huge playing field, because the moment they enter an organization, the entire lab is working all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's something that probably is there. In fact, there's an example that I gave in the book. I said, think of a competency as a magnet in a glass, in a glass, right? In a water glass, let's say. If I were to take the glass without the magnet and rub it against iron filings, nothing much is going to happen, right? But if I put the magnet inside the glass and then rub it on the iron filings stick to the glass. This is like a competency. The presence of it causes performance. The absence of it, well, you don't get the observed performance, right? So and it's very important to understand in the context of HR analytics, because if I understand what is the diamond line that's running in the mine, I exactly know what else to do for the business.
Right. No, then that's very critical, because without that, you can't move forward around it towards the analytics part of it until you understand this basic aspect of differentiation between competency and competence and what causes what. So the cause and effect has to be very, very clear, and that's only where you can then create your matrices around it, and you create your analytics or your measurable criteria around it.
Yes, absolutely.
And another chapter of yours, you're talking about a Kolb's learning cycle for analysis and action, and you have very beautifully aligned it with this entire concept of HR analytics. To me, I have always seen it as two different processes. One on account of how a human being learns, which is the entire Kolb cycle, and this was more the left brain technical analytical part of HR, which is the HR analytics piece. And you have really married it well and created a nice framework around it. I would love to listen from you for all our participants around your thoughts on this.
Thank you. I think the first person who needs to be thanked is Alice Kolb. So I wrote to her, in a bumbling way, and I said, hey, you know what, I want to use this in the book. I have no clue if you still have a copyright or whatever. And she said, yeah, go ahead and use it. Right. So the first thing is there. And so the entire thing is, I was looking around for a framework that kind of talks the same language of whatever I do in an organization, and I'm able to show results. And then I kind of started doodling around and then figured out. And then at a moment I realized, hey, you know what? what's actually so then if I'm an engineer, right? So I was thinking, what are neural networks? If I think of neural network, a neural network can be thought of as having different nodes in a three-dimensional space, and each of these nodes has a certain weight associated with it. So when learning happens, actually what is happening is weights on the neural network are changing, and at a point in time, we are trying to figure out if there's a global minimum, a local minimum, and so on. So if I were to think of HR analytics and what they do to an organization, they are actually causing organizational learning to happen. Right? When learning happens, there's a change in capability or competency, and competency leads to performance. And that's how I've been able to see that, starting with concrete experience, moving on to reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, active experimentation, and then going to back and seeing, hey, now can I see a change? Moving around this cycle twice in the journey of HR analytics creates what are called active analytics. Most of the analytics that we've all seen are all about passive analytics, right? Attrition. So what? Attrition happened, past, right? Costs, fair enough. But can you do something that marries everything together? To say, oh, fire so many people, your cost will come down. Hey, you don't need a HR guy for that, right? You just need the right click and delete Excel lines, then you're sorted, right? So where is a HR solution? And that's where this comes in.
Yeah, no, I never looked at it in that way, Siddharth, to be honest with you earlier, that they are so interlinked, and it's really brought in a very different perspective, that how this is related to learning and how this entire learning concept can be applied, towards analytics. So great thoughts around it, Siddharth. And let me come to the next part of your book, which is about the HR design. And this chapter, you talk about that HR design is all about doing things that help people organize get even more successful. And then you're talking about some 12 fundamental principles of HR design. And how did you came up with them? And what are and is it in a particular order, or does it flow one to another? What's the entire construct of the principles of HR design?
Oh, thank you for touching upon that, Amit. I worked with extremely successful people. I worked with extremely intelligent people. And yet in many organizations, I have continuously seen the same mistakes being committed again and again, right? And not only in my organizations, in many other organizations, I ask a simple fundamental question. If Coca-Cola can be marketed as something slightly differently pronounced in China, because otherwise it means bite the wax tadpole, right? Why should HR have common policies globally? I mean, what is this control freakiness about? Right? What is this obsession with standardization? Right? Haven't we evolved enough to reflect and say, hey, where is this need coming from? Right? And as I started looking at that a little more and more, I started figuring out that if there's got to be design, designers actually comes from unstated, very subtle yearnings of the human being. And if HR were to start designing stuff or use design, principles of design, then the effectiveness of HR is going to go up tremendously. It's largely because, my CEO tells me a very simple thing. He says, as a company, we make what customers want. Okay, and that is so simple, because often what happens is there is so much of dissonance on the way that as a company, we are doing something because we are in love with it. Who cares about what the customer thinks, right? I'm a big fan of aviation. I'm a big fan of Volvo buses also, right? And today afternoon when we were talking, I said, hey, Amit, I have a request for you. I'd like to drive one of your buses. I want to come to your office, right? And one of the things I remember was Volvo had created these beautiful cabins, one of your latest models of trucks, where the driver really has a great life while he's driving through the week, right? His his little light over there, the little refrigerators, a place for the microwave, the bed is foldable if he has someone else, a co-trucker with him and so on. So that is design. So why isn't HR using it? That was my question. And over experience, whatever I figured out is, number one, don't try to do anything in HR extra, other than payroll, unless there's a will by the leadership. Because if giving that to will of leadership could be, you don't end up paying. So sometimes, of course. So don't do anything unless there's a will by the leadership. Understand what makes or breaks that particular business through HR. It's important to make peace with that, right? Spend time contracting and clarifying your ideas with the leadership. Because if one's ideas are not accepted, there is a fat chance that one's initiatives or interventions are going to actually fly. Have a human approach. Humans come first. Trust them. So sometimes there's this dehumanized approach of Excel sheet se company chalayenge, right? Stretch people as much as you can, and if they can't do it, they will leave, right? What are you doing? You're as a company guy, we are all wasting money then, right? It's actually money is getting drained out, because every moment there's a human associated with the company, there's money that's flowing. Find out final customers and what is it they want in the intervention we are planning. Don't do it because an intermediate customer wants something. What is it my final customer wants? Use principles of brain functioning. For example, in one of the companies I was, we ensured all the policies are one page long, and we ensured different policies for different levels of career. One can't see the other guys, because a policy is a great way to make 98% of the people in the company feel small, right? What David Rock calls an away brain state, right? Because anyone who reads that, other than the CEO and probably the CEO's direct reports, all are made to feel small, saying, oh, I can't go in business class. Why do you need a policy document to consistently make everyone feel small? So these are small little principles of brain functioning. Use a lot of energy to snowball. Keep it simple. Make employees drive the change, because finally they are the ones based on whom the design has happened. So automatically it will take off. Fine tune based on intuition, based on actual data. And devolve the HR function to the people managers. As it is in startups, OKRs are run by a function called strategy. It's no CEOs have stopped believing in HR, that HR can run OKRs. They are giving away, let's say, young leadership programs off to their this other thing, the other designation that has come in recently. It's missing me. It's not the executive assistant, it's the next chief of staff, right? So why is the chief of staff running that, right? It's a HR job. And so basically start devolving the HR function to people managers, because that's where they see HR becoming more and more of a coach, a facilitator, and a driver of performance. And finally move on to larger improvements. There is so much more to do. Yeah, long answer to a short question, but then you said 12, so I had to mention all the 12.
That's important, because it's important for our participants to understand this entire concept of HR design, because that's another basis of the entire analytics. These are all foundational principles of having a strong analytical way of running HR. I come to the next chapter of your book, Siddharth, and this is about the model of HR metrics. And you're talking about, you make a nice statement here that the HR metrics is the process of achieving long-lasting positive changes or significant results that matter to the customers of the organization by focusing on the principles of HR design and piloting the process based on numbers that form the crux of what drives success. And this way, HR adds direct value through human resources interventions. And they're saying this is all about the human number. So can you explain a bit more detail about, because you've also given a lot of steps around it. But what is I'll not ask you all these 12 steps which are there, but what's the most, if I were to ask you, what are the 2 or 3 most critical ones which an HR practitioner needs to really focus on in the context of creating an HR metrics? What would those be?
Sure, that's a difficult question. Probably good thought for my next book. Thank you. So the first thing is, love your business, live your business. If I understand my business as a HR practitioner, I know exactly what is happening, what's important, what's not important, right? Once I know that, I am going to make changes based on HR design, which is I'm going to understand what matters to my final customers and what aspect of that matters to my internal customers, and how is HR going to help them become even more successful. So just 2 steps.
Okay. And there's one question which is coming up multiple times on my chat window, and I thought I initially thought I'll ask later, but let me ask now, because this is also as I'm getting into your chapter 6 about a few measures, and this is also kind of covering that. And somebody's asking, what are the few? I'll actually read it out. Just give me a second. Yeah, what are the key metrics to measure HR function? Now, and another very simplistic question, which has extremely deep. You have devoted a full chapter to it around some of the illustrative matrices you are giving. But if you were to answer this question to a participant, what would be your top of the line measures would be from an HR standpoint?
Sure, like you rightly said, Amit, there's a whole chapter giving away freely, tens of different metrics and measures that a person can use. But then I don't want to get into a trap that here is one metric that you can use, because every metric depends on the context, depends on the business. So I would actually flip that and ask, hey, what's important for your business? Number one, right? And what in your business causes that? Okay. Third step, how does HR influence that, measure that?
I think that's a good baseline to see, to focus on what's essential in an organization. And you're right, things have to be very, very contextual. Everything will not work everywhere. And I think you gave a good example earlier that if you are measuring a quarter by quarter output of a engineering guy, it will just not work. Because they are into long-term projects, but at the same time, if you are looking at a 1 year, 1.5 year time frame to measure a salesperson, it will be completely disastrous, because we won't even know when the market would have probably slipped out of the mind. So it has to be very contextual towards the business. It has to be very contextual towards the function within the business, and probably what also I think you mentioned earlier, that what matters more to the business. So it's not, there are hundreds of things which we can measure. But the concept of KPI, which when you explained the measurement metrics and the KPI, so the KPI, as you said, is very, very contextual to what the business needs. So this has to be like that. And when people will get your book, probably they can have some answers to it. I think after the session, we're going to share a soft copy of your book with our participants.
Absolutely. That's the security plan. Give it away for. So and the other thing is, it's all about being able to really contextualize it, because often competency frameworks, in some organizations, they are adapted. That's a sweet way of saying it's copied from some other organization, and then it doesn't work.
Or benchmark.
Sorry?
Or benchmark.
Benchmark. Yeah. Best practice. So now the example I give is, hey, can I expect my child to behave like my neighbor's child and expect that will work inside my house? It won't. The contexts are different. Similarly, HR metrics won't work.
True. And there's an interesting story which you wrote in your book about why did you call it an HR metrics, and you have a nice asterisk story. Probably like to listen it from your own, in your own words, Siddharth.
So when I was looking at metrics, there was a lot of background preparatory work I was doing, and I beyond a point in time when you see hundreds of research papers and readings all around, there's a little bit of irritation, though it was my own book that I was writing. Hey, kya metrics? Then, it hit me and said, this is spelt wrong. It shouldn't be METRICS. It should be METRIX. Okay, and the reason is, if you think of anyone who's enjoyed Asterix and Obelix, right? There are these two blokes in ancient Gaul, 50 BC, and that's not before Corona. That's right. So these two chaps have regular run-ins with the Roman soldiers, and Obelix does one thing. After he's bashed up all the Roman soldiers, he picks up all the helmets and keeps them. Right. So when he's walking back into the village, there's like a huge, tall tower of helmets in his hand. And I said, "Hey, this is also a human number." Right? He started metricizing his own performance, and that's how the word HR metrics came into the book.
That's an interesting story. I'll just sort of wind up now because we're already getting close to 8. It's getting time, but I can't stop asking you this question that you have authored multiple books. So apart from writing, what else is your passion? What else you do in your free time?
Great question. So one is these days I do a lot of executive coaching. I find that having learned so much from Dr. Marshall, I think it's only right that I pass it on. Right. So I do a lot of executive coaching for HR professionals and so on. So along with that, I'm also a lot into HR capability building. So there's a friend of mine and we've started this thing called Gear Up. So the website is www.gearup.cafe. And for example, we've been running a 2-month series now on psychometrics. Every Saturday we have around 100 folks who sign in voluntarily, right? And usually we ask the question, "Hey, did you come here? Were you sent here?" So they all come on their own. We've been doing that. We are doing a lot of videos. There's a YouTube channel we run called the Gear Up channel. Those are some of the other things that I love to do, other than being playful and nosy and trying to figure out what more I need to start writing. I think, yeah.
Good. So maybe let me kind of know you even more. So if you are stranded on an island, whom would you get stranded with? Whom would you like to get stranded with?
Is confidential an answer?
No, that's not an answer.
Okay, I would like to get stranded with a Chinook helicopter and its pilot, because then I can get out of that island as soon as I want.
That's not the answer we were looking at, Siddharth. Okay, let me take some of the questions from our participants. So one of the questions which is there on my box is it possible to measure the willingness of an employee to perform a job during a time period? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it is possible to measure if the context is set. For example, the person who asked this question, if I were to ask, how willingly are you watching this video, rate it on a scale from 1 to 10, where 10 is highest and 1 is lowest, yeah, the person would give me a number, and it's measured pronto.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And another question is, how can HR intervention strengthen people plus process plus practice is equal to performance? So if that's the equation seems to be a good mathematician, P plus P plus P is equal to another P. So, so if we were to look at it, how can HR strengthen this equation of people plus process plus practice is equal to performance?
So there's a belief I observe around there. And the belief is that people plus process plus practice is going to give performance. I'm going to challenge this person to say, just throw it away for a moment. Just focus on what's important. Focus on visible, observable, countable performance.
Mm-hmm.
And then find out what's important for your company. It's very simple. I told you, it's very, very simple. And not to you, to the participant, right? Whom I'm not able to see here. Find out what's important for your business. Find out how that's caused inside. Find out how HR can impact it positively. Start doing that now.
Yeah. So don't get confused into these equations or this, complex mathematical models. I think it's a very relevant point that focus on what's really important to the business and just start working towards it, and that's what will start making a difference there.
Someone was once asked whether leaders are made, they are born or made, and the person responded saying, all the leaders I've trained were all born. Okay. So, just adding in the same direction of what you said, don't tie yourself up with too many equations, right? Just do what's important.
Yeah. Another question is, how relevant is predictive analytics in the field of HR? That's by one of the participants.
Yeah. So I do remember this example of a multi-billion dollar company which at one point in time invested millions of dollars in a software that could read all the emails and all the chats of everyone and then give a predictive index of who would leave in a group of 100 people in a development center. And my question was, what's the HR guy doing? Isn't he moving around there with his sensing, his feeling, and his presence on? And he sees someone with a negative smiley, does he go there, put his hand around the shoulder and say, hey dude, what's happening? Right? So of course I'm stretching the example. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's definitely possible. I ran a session, a week-long program on HR analytics that included predictive analytics by a facilitator. But what I'm saying is, why bother about stuff when you can actually talk to the subjects? Numbers are useful when I can't talk to the object, right? But in this case, the object is a human being. Can I start working with that person, and hence active analytics? Can I work with this person to change perspectives? Can I measure that pre and post? Well, you have a human number.
Good. So on that note, we are bang at 8. So I'll close this session. Thank you so much, Siddharth, for your candid views. And it's a very insightful book which you have written, and sharing your thoughts which you have articulated in your book. That's really nice. And I'm sure all the participants would have really benefited, and they are looking forward to grabbing a copy of this book, and also probably waiting for your next book. What's something which you're writing now? Is it something you're writing?
So there are 3 more books that have already come out. So one is called the HR 12 tweets, HR analytics in 12 tweets. I realize people don't want to read even a 99-page book, so I wrote HR analytics in 12 tweets. And then there's something on compensation design. There's a checklist for people managers. Don't send people managers on 1 week and spend lakhs of rupees on a resort. Let them just use the checklist, much like pilots, right? A new book is coming up. It's called The Intelligent Workplace. So looking forward to that.
Good, and wish you all the best, Siddharth, for that book, and looking forward to be hosting you again when your next book is out, to share your insights again on those things, on those aspects rather, with our participants.
Oh, absolutely. I look forward to that too. And thank you, Amit, for wonderfully asking me such insightful questions. And thanks NHRD Bangalore, Lakshmi, and the entire team at the back end for getting this organized.
Yeah, thank you. And before I hand it over to Lakshmi, probably I'll just once again share with all our participants about the NHRD membership. If you are not a member, please go ahead and be the NHRD member. And there are lots of benefits in terms of sessions like these, and there are some member sessions which are exclusively for them. There are discounts on the learning program. And the entire thing around networking with the other HR professionals. So that's something which we are all looking forward to. So please, become a member and become part of the fraternity. And also we have 2 more good programs coming in. Lakshmi mentioned it at the beginning about HR analytics and employee relations. So we encourage this happening somewhere. Maybe if everybody else can go on mute. Yeah. So we have an employee relations program coming in, which is designed along with vSchool, and this is for providing skills which are towards understanding the changing labor laws, changing paradigm of employee relations, collective bargaining, and compliances. It's also about it's a very critical skill which an HR professional needs to have these days, apart from the entire concept of talent management or comp and ben, which we look about. The employee relations is the critical one, because human resource function is primarily about people and understanding people, working with them. And that's the core of any HR professional. So look forward to people participating in this program and enrolling themselves for the certification. So with that, I hand it over back to you, Lakshmi, for your closure. You need to unmute yourself, Lakshmi.
Thank you, Naga. That was a pretty great session. A lot of participants seem to be really excited. I've already had mails coming in asking for Naga's book. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm to read his book and get started already with that. So we will send it across to you as soon as possible. That's one. Secondly, and the final bit of it, please go to menti.com, use the code that all of you can see on the screen. That's 322312. Give us your feedback. It'll help us to know how the session went, and it'll also help us understand what we can do better in our upcoming sessions. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who joined. Thank you, Naga. Thank you, Amit. Thank you for making time to do this for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just feel free to circulate the book as much as you want. Yeah, to all the participants.
Yes, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, pleasure, Lakshmi.
Tell me when the streaming is. Mm-hmm.